stop scrolling. This is about you. Chosen ones, if you felt something pull you here, something unexplainable, something urgent, this is not random. This is a God's message unfolding in real time, aligned with divine timing and aimed directly at your life. You did not find this video, you were led to it. And that tightening in your chest, that quiet inner voice saying, listen carefully, that is not imagination, that is recognition. In this video, we are exposing the hidden stages of spiritual awakening, the undeniable signs of a divine calling, and the truth about what separates the truly chosen from everyone else. Awakening does not explode all at once. It unfolds in layers, first restlessness, then separation, then heightened awareness, then detachment, then a calling so powerful it refuses to let you go back to who you used to be. Most people will scroll past this and feel nothing, but you didn't. You stopped. You're still here, and that alone reveals something about you. Watch until the end, because what you are about to hear will confirm what your spirit has known all along. There is a reason your life has not felt ordinary. There is a reason you have always sensed there was more. A reason you have felt different in rooms where you technically belong. A reason you have outgrown environments before anyone else noticed they were shrinking you. That is not ego. That is activation. Today we are uncovering the truth about the 5 strange habits of a real chosen one. Not personality quirks, not trends, not spiritual theatrics. Real habits, deep ones, the kind that isolate you before they elevate you, the kind that make people misunderstand you before they respect you. These habits may look strange to others, but they are powerful chosen one signs. They are divine calling indicators. They are advanced spiritual awakening traits that only those walking through divine timing will recognize in themselves. And there is one habit in particular, habit number 3, that changes everything. It is the turning point, the shift, the moment where striving ends and alignment begins. Most people resist it. Most people fear it, but once it activates, your life starts moving differently. Doors open without force, people respond without pressure, peace replaces performance. Stay with me until that one. But first, I want you to do something intentional. If you already feel aligned with this message, if something inside you feels seen, comment 777 below. Not for superstition, not for performance. 7 has long symbolized completion and divine order. 777 represents divine confirmation. It signals that spiritual awakening traits are activating and that divine timing is unfolding exactly as designed. When you comment 777, you are declaring alignment. You are acknowledging that this message is not random for you, because it is not. Understand this clearly. Real spiritual awakening does not arrive polished, aesthetic, or socially impressive. It does not announce itself with applause. It disrupts, it unsettles, it rearranges your inner world before your outer world has time to catch up. It looks like losing interest in what once obsessed you. Conversations that once entertained you now feel empty. Goals that once drove you now feel hollow. You find yourself distancing from noise, not because you think you are better, but because your spirit can no longer tolerate constant distraction. It looks like craving depth in a world addicted to surface. You want meaning, not performance, truth, not trends, substance, not stimulation. You begin asking bigger questions. Why am I here? What actually matters? Who am I becoming? And sometimes the answers do not come immediately. Instead, there is a quiet internal pull, an unshakable sense that you are being called towards something you cannot yet fully explain. And that is where many chosen ones begin to doubt themselves. Because awakening feels unfamiliar, it can feel lonely. It can feel like you are outgrowing rooms you once fit inside. You start wondering if you are overthinking everything, if you are becoming too sensitive to energy, tone and intention, if you are pulling away from people too quickly, if you are becoming strange, distant, different. You question whether you are evolving or simply isolating. But what if those very shifts are proof? What if your discomfort with mediocrity is not arrogance but a divine calling indicator pushing you beyond average thinking? What if your need for solitude is not avoidance but a chosen one sign that your spirit requires silence to receive clarity? What if your heightened awareness is not anxiety but spiritual awakening traits sharpening your discernment and protecting your peace? What if the very things you are trying to suppress are the evidence that you are being refined? Because awakening does not always feel empowering at first. It feels like shedding skin. It feels like grieving old identities. It feels like walking away from comfort without yet seeing the full promise ahead. And the moment you stop labeling your growth as a problem, you begin to recognize it as preparation. The deeper the calling, the stronger the contrast. You will feel the tension between who you were trained to be and who you were designed to become. That tension is real. The war is real. There is a battle over attention, over identity, over light. And if you have felt resistance in your growth, pushback when you try to rise, confusion when you try to step forward, understand something. Light attracts opposition. Your light is necessary. If even one of these habits describes you, your life will never look the same again, because recognition changes everything. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand it, you cannot pretend you do not. Let me circle back to where we began. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the pull. You are not fabricating the shift. You are called, not randomly, not vaguely, specifically. There is purpose woven into your sensitivity. There is assignment hidden in your detachment. There is design behind your difference. The war is real, but so is your calling. And if this touched your soul, comment 101, because you know it. You were called. Habit number 1. You disappear without explaining yourself. Chosen ones. One of the first habits that confuses people about you is this: you disappear without explaining yourself. One day, you are present, engaged, available. Then suddenly, you are gone. Messages unanswered, invitations declined, energy withdrawn, and people do not understand it. They label it avoidance. They call it arrogance. They whisper that you are distant, detached, inconsistent. But they are misreading what is sacred. This is not avoidance. This is spiritual recalibration. Real chosen ones withdraw without warning because their spirit recognizes when it is time to reset. There are moments when the noise becomes too loud, when conversations feel surface level, when environments feel heavy, and something inside you says, "Step back." You do not always have the language for it. You just know you need space. After social interaction, you may crave silence. After emotional intensity, you may need isolation. When energy in a room feels chaotic or forced, you instinctively pull back. That is not weakness, that is discernment activating. During spiritual awakening, your sensitivity increases, your nervous system restructures, you begin to process stimulation differently. What once felt normal now feels overwhelming. What once entertained you now exhausts you. You are not becoming fragile, you are becoming aware. Spiritual awakening traits often show up in the body before they show up in behavior. You may notice you tire faster in crowds. You may notice your tolerance for gossip disappears. You may feel drained after being around people who perform instead of speak truth. This is not antisocial behavior. This is alignment protecting itself. And here is what most people will never tell you. During seasons of divine calling, God isolates the chosen one to refine them. Isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. When you disappear, you are not running from people, you are returning to yourself. You are recalibrating your energy. You are quieting the noise so you can hear divine instruction more clearly. That silence is not emptiness, it is training. This is one of the clearest chosen one signs. Because not everyone can handle solitude. Most people need constant distraction. Most people fear stillness. But when you withdraw, something strengthens inside you. Reflection sharpens you. Clarity increases. Your thoughts organize. Your spirit stabilizes. It is one of the strongest divine calling indicators because leaders must first be refined in private before they are revealed in public. What feels like social loss is often spiritual gain. What looks like detachment is often divine development. And yes, people misunderstand it. They may feel rejected. They may project their insecurity onto your silence. They may assume you think you are better than them. But the truth is simpler. You cannot stay in spaces that disturb your alignment. This reflects advanced spiritual awakening traits. You are no longer fueled by attention. You are fueled by peace. And peace requires boundaries. Let me speak directly to the part of you that questions this. If you have lost friends because you needed space, you are not broken, you are being built. If you have outgrown conversations that once felt normal, you are not becoming cold, you are becoming conscious. If you have had seasons where you disappeared just to survive internally, you were not abandoning others, you were protecting your light. The war is subtle, it is energetic, it is internal, and when your light begins to intensify, you must guard it carefully. Not everyone can handle your growth. Not every environment can sustain your expansion. So you withdraw. You recalibrate. You pray. You think. You reset. Then you return stronger. Circle back to what we established at the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining these shifts. You were called, and calling requires consecration. Consecration requires separation. The war is real. There is pressure against your clarity. There is resistance against your light. But your light is necessary. Your disappearance is not weakness. It is strategy. It is sacred preparation. It is evidence that something greater is forming beneath the surface. And if this habit resonates deeply, if you recognize yourself in these patterns, do not dismiss it. Do not shrink it. Own it. Because this is one of the undeniable chosen one signs. And if this touched your soul, comment 111, 11114, because you know it. You were called. But the next habit is even stranger. Habit number 2. You feel tired around certain people. Chosen ones. The second habit is subtle, but it reveals more about your calling than you realize. You feel tired around certain people, not physically exhausted from activity, but internally drained after exposure. You can walk into a room feeling stable and leave it feeling heavy without anyone saying anything directly harmful, and for years you may have blamed yourself for that reaction. Let us ground this. This is not mysticism without logic. This is discernment meeting biology. During spiritual awakening, your perception sharpens. You begin noticing tone shifts, inconsistencies, tension beneath smiles, insecurity beneath confidence. Your nervous system registers what your conscious mind may not immediately articulate. That sensitivity is not imagination, it is intelligence. Chosen ones often feel drained in crowds, but energized alone. When you are alone, your thoughts align, your breathing slows, your energy stabilizes. But in certain environments, especially performative or dishonest ones, something in your body tightens. You may become quieter, you may withdraw internally, you may count the minutes until you can leave. This is heightened perception during spiritual awakening. You are not just hearing words, you are sensing coherence. You are noticing when actions do not match language. You are detecting subtle competition, envy, insecurity, or manipulation, and because your system is becoming refined, you cannot comfortably sit in environments that lack authenticity. God's message is often felt through energy shifts, not just spoken sentences. You have likely experienced moments where nothing inappropriate was said, yet everything felt off. That is discernment. That is spiritual maturity increasing. That is your internal compass recalibrating to truth. This is a divine calling indicator because those marked for deeper purpose cannot tolerate fake environments for long. The mask exhausts you, small talk drains you, Performative connections irritate your spirit. You crave sincerity, depth, honesty, alignment, and when you do not find it, you feel tired. Social pruning becomes inevitable. You stop forcing connections that once seemed necessary. You decline invitations that feel misaligned. You reduce exposure to people who consistently leave you feeling small or confused. This is one of the clearer chosen one signs. Not because you dislike people, but because your standards shift. There is also something physiological happening. Your nervous system is becoming more intelligent. Trauma responses begin to unwind. Hypervigilance transforms into discernment. You no longer override your internal warnings just to be accepted. That is growth. That is spiritual awakening traits integrating into your body. Spiritual maturity means you do not need chaos to feel alive. You do not need drama to feel connected. You do not need validation from rooms that cannot recognize your depth. You would rather sit alone in peace than stand surrounded in tension. Let this settle. You are not antisocial. You are spiritually selective. That sentence alone may release years of self-doubt. You were never meant to be available to everyone. You were meant to be aligned with a few. As your calling strengthens, your circle refines. As your light intensifies, contrast increases. Some people will feel inspired by your presence. Others will feel exposed by it. And that exposure can create friction. The war is subtle. It shows up in environments that try to normalize dishonesty. It shows up in spaces that reward superficiality. It shows up when your spirit resists what others accept without question. But resistance does not mean you are wrong. It often means you are awake. Circle back to what was declared at the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the exhaustion. You are not dramatic. You are called, and calling sharpens perception. The war is real. There is tension between truth and illusion, between light and performance. Your light is necessary. Your discernment protects it. Do not numb it. Do not silence it. Do not convince yourself that you must tolerate what drains you to be nice. Kindness does not require self-betrayal. Compassion does not require proximity to dysfunction. You are being trained to sense before you speak, to observe before you act, to step back before you are entangled. That is strength. And if this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it, you are called. The third habit, this is where most people realize who they truly are. Habit number 3, you stop chasing and everything changes. Chosen ones, this is the turning point. This is the habit that separates effort from alignment. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. There comes a moment during spiritual awakening when you lose the desire to chase. You stop proving. You stop convincing. You stop forcing doors that refuse to open, and something inside you grows quiet. At first it feels unfamiliar. You were trained to pursue, to compete, to explain yourself until people understood, to beg for clarity, to fight for validation. But as your divine calling strengthens, that hunger fades. You no longer want to exhaust yourself trying to be seen. You no longer feel urgency to be understood by everyone. Detachment activates alignment. This is not apathy, it is maturity. It is not laziness, it is awareness. During spiritual awakening, your internal compass recalibrates. You begin recognizing that what is truly meant for you does not require self-betrayal. What is aligned does not demand that you shrink or perform. And here is where everything changes. Once the chosen one stops begging for validation, doors begin opening. Opportunities arrive without manipulation. Conversations flow without strategy. Relationships feel mutual instead of strained. You notice synchronicities increasing. Timing begins to make sense. That is divine alignment responding to surrender. This is one of the most powerful, unusual spiritual habits because it contradicts everything the world teaches. The world says chase harder, prove louder, demand attention. but your spirit begins whispering something different. Align first. This is a defining chosen one sign, because not everyone can release control. Not everyone can trust divine timing over urgency. But when you stop chasing, you are not quitting, you are repositioning, you are stepping out of desperation and into design. It is among the clearest divine calling indicators, because detachment reveals identity. When you no longer need applause to feel secure, you are stable. When you no longer fear being misunderstood, you are anchored. When you no longer panic at delay, you trust divine timing. And this marks advanced spiritual awakening traits. There is a sacred principle operating here, often misunderstood. The law of attraction is not about obsessively visualizing outcomes. It is about alignment over effort. Energy follows identity. When you become internally aligned with peace, you attract environments that mirror it. When you detach from fear, you stop magnetizing chaos. When you release control, you create space for divine orchestration. When a chosen one detaches, heaven responds. That is not metaphor, that is movement. Reflect for a moment. Have you experienced sudden shifts after surrender? Times when you finally stopped trying to force a relationship and clarity appeared? Moments when you released a goal and a better opportunity surfaced? Instances where you stopped explaining yourself and respect increased? That is not coincidence. That is alignment. During this phase of spiritual awakening, your priorities reorganize. You care more about integrity than impression. You value peace over popularity. You choose silence over unnecessary argument. And surprisingly, the more you detach, the more stable your life becomes. Because you are no longer operating from fear. The war is real. It pressures you to chase relevance, to compare, to compete, to panic. But your calling demands composure. Your light cannot shine steadily if it flickers with insecurity. Detachment strengthens your flame. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining this shift. You were called, and calling requires confidence, rooted in alignment, not applause. There will be people who misunderstand your detachment. They may accuse you of changing. They may say you no longer care, but they are witnessing your evolution. They are observing a chosen one sign, activating in real time. You are no longer desperate for what disturbs your peace. You are no longer anxious about what bypasses you. You are no longer chasing what is not chasing you back. And that stability unsettles environments built on insecurity. Your light is necessary, but it must be grounded. It must be anchored. It must be detached from outcomes so it can move freely. When you release force, you allow flow. When you surrender control, you receive clarity. This is transformation. You stop chasing approval. You start embodying purpose. You stop chasing people. You start attracting alignment. You stop chasing timing. You trust divine timing. And the moment you trust it, everything rearranges. Let this settle deeply. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not losing momentum. You are being positioned. Detachment is not loss. It is elevation. And if this touched your soul, comment 11, 111, 111, 11 Tauftamet, because you know it. You were called. Habit number 4. You question everything, even yourself. Chosen ones, this habit is quieter than the others, but it runs deeper. You question everything, even yourself. You replay conversations in your mind. You examine your tone. You dissect your reactions. You analyze your motives. After making a decision, you reflect on why you made it. After feeling an emotion, you ask where it came from. To others, this may look like overthinking, but in truth, it is refinement. Sacred doubt is spiritual intelligence. During spiritual awakening, the ego does not disappear instantly. It is dismantled layer by layer, and that dismantling is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront pride, insecurity, fear, ambition, jealousy, and even hidden intentions you did not realize were shaping your behavior. You do not simply assume you are right, you investigate yourself. That is not insecurity, that is awareness. Chosen ones overanalyze because they care about alignment. They do not want to lead from ego. They do not want to speak from unhealed wounds. They do not want to build influence on unstable foundations, so they examine themselves first. They ask difficult questions internally before asking anything of the world. This is one of the deeper chosen one signs. Because the counterfeit is confident, the chosen one is conscious. Let that settle. There are people who move loudly, decisively, and boldly without ever examining their own blind spots. They mistake volume for authority. They mistake certainty for wisdom. But true spiritual maturity questions itself. True leadership pauses before projecting. True calling refines the vessel before releasing the voice. During spiritual awakening, God's message often comes through internal discomfort. It comes through conviction, through restlessness after speaking harshly, through that subtle nudge that says, that reaction was not aligned, through the uneasy silence that forces you to confront your pride. This discomfort is not condemnation, it is correction, and correction is care. If you were not called, you would not feel this level of internal accountability. If your light were not necessary, you would not feel such urgency to purify your motives. But because you carry influence, even if only quietly for now, you are trained to self-correct before correcting others. That is a divine calling indicator. Leaders who do not examine themselves eventually collapse under their own unaddressed flaws. But you feel the weight of responsibility before you ever receive the platform. You question yourself now, so that when you stand later, you stand clean. You ask, was I speaking from love or ego? You ask, am I reacting from old wounds? You ask, is this alignment or insecurity? This level of introspection can feel exhausting. It can make you doubt your progress. It can make you wonder if you are too hard on yourself. But the truth is, you are being sharpened. Spiritual awakening traits include heightened self-awareness. The more aware you become, the less comfortable you are with unconscious behavior. You cannot ignore your own inconsistencies. You cannot pretend you did not feel that internal correction. The war is not only external, it is internal. It is the battle between ego and humility, between impulse and intention, between reaction and reflection, and you are fighting it consciously. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the inner dialogue. You are not broken because you question yourself. You were called, and calling requires consciousness. The world rewards certainty without depth, but heaven shapes depth before certainty. Your questioning is not weakness, it is wisdom in development. You are refining your character. You are aligning your motives. You are dismantling false confidence to build authentic authority. And when you finally speak with clarity, it will not be loud arrogance. It will be grounded conviction. Your light is necessary, but it must be pure. It must be intentional. It must be conscious. That is why you feel discomfort when you misstep. That is why you replay moments others would ignore. That is why you cannot move carelessly. You are being prepared. And if this touched your soul, comment a 1-1. Because you know it. You were called. Now there is one final habit, and it has followed you since the beginning of your life. Habit number 5. You feel different, even in rooms where you belong. Chosen ones. This final habit has followed you longer than the others. It did not begin in adulthood. It did not start with your recent spiritual awakening. It has been with you since childhood. You have always felt different, even in rooms where you technically belonged. Not superior, not better, just separate. You could sit among friends, classmates, co-workers, even family, and still feel slightly outside of the rhythm. You understood conversations, yet felt disconnected from their depth. You participated, yet sensed you were observing more than engaging. There was always a subtle awareness that you were not fully rooted in the same frequency as everyone else. That feeling is spiritual displacement. It is destiny, awareness before language. As a child, you may have felt older than your years. You may have been described as mature, serious, or thoughtful. You noticed tension adults thought they were hiding. You felt the emotional atmosphere of rooms without anyone explaining it to you. You asked deeper questions, while others were content with simple answers. That is not coincidence. That is imprint. A divine calling often announces itself early, not through status, but through sensitivity. Not through applause, but through awareness. You were not designed to move unconsciously. You were wired to perceive. These are spiritual awakening traits. They did not suddenly appear. They unfolded gradually. As you grew, the gap sometimes widened. You struggled to relate to shallow conversations. You felt restless in environments that celebrated noise over meaning. Even when you achieved what you were supposed to achieve, something inside you whispered, "There is more." These are divine calling indicators. Because when someone is set apart, it is not for isolation alone, it is for assignment. The discomfort of not blending in is preparation. It builds independence. It builds internal validation. It teaches you not to anchor your identity in group approval. These are undeniable chosen one signs. And understand this clearly, God isolates before elevation. Isolation is not rejection, it is positioning. If you blended perfectly into every environment, you would never develop the strength to stand alone when necessary. If you felt fully satisfied by surface-level connection, you would never hunger for deeper truth. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to awaken others. That sentence may have followed you your entire life without words. When you speak honestly, people pause. When you ask real questions, conversations shift. When you remove yourself from dysfunction, others feel the absence, because your presence carries weight. The war is subtle but persistent. It tries to convince you that being different is a flaw. It tries to pressure you into conformity. It whispers that you are too much or not enough. But that tension is evidence of contrast. Light does not dissolve into darkness, it reveals it. Circle back to where this began. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the lifelong sense of being set apart. You were called from the beginning, before you understood the language of spiritual awakening, before you could articulate divine alignment. The imprint was already there. Your difference is not an accident, it is architecture. You feel separate because your perspective is elevated. You feel displaced because your assignment is distinct. You feel alone at times because growth often happens in solitude before it manifests in community. And yet, this separation is not permanent loneliness. It is temporary refinement. There will be aligned connections. There will be environments where your depth is welcomed. But first, you must accept that blending in was never your destiny. Your light is necessary. Not diluted, not dimmed, not disguised, necessary. And if this touched your soul, comment 11111, because you know it. You were called. Now let us bring this together and understand what these habits truly mean. Integration, what these habits really mean, chosen ones. Now we bring this together. You disappear without explaining yourself. You feel tired around certain people. You stop chasing and everything changes. You question everything, even yourself. You have always felt different, even in rooms where you belong. Individually, these habits can feel confusing. Together, they form a pattern, and that pattern is identity. What you once called strange is sacred design. Your need for solitude is not antisocial behavior. It is recalibration. Your exhaustion around inauthentic environments is not weakness. It is discernment. Your detachment from chasing validation is not laziness. It is alignment. Your self-questioning is not insecurity. It is refinement. Your lifelong sense of being set apart is not alienation, it is destiny awareness. Spiritual awakening is not glamorous, it is restructuring. It dismantles old coping mechanisms, it exposes ego, it removes attachments, it prunes relationships, it shifts priorities, it confronts illusions, it strengthens discernment, it deepens solitude, it demands honesty. From the outside, that does not look impressive, it looks inconvenient, it looks lonely, it looks intense, but internally it is construction. Layer by layer, your foundation is being rebuilt. These habits are not random personality traits. They are spiritual awakening traits integrating into your character. They are divine calling indicators, aligning your behavior with your assignment. They are undeniable, chosen one signs, shaping you quietly before you are revealed publicly. But hear this with maturity and discernment. Not everyone who relates to parts of this is a chosen one in the way we are describing. Many people experience isolation. Many people question themselves. Many people grow tired of shallow environments. Relatability alone does not confirm calling. Activation does. If you feel stirred, convicted, emotionally awakened, unsettled in a way that feels purposeful rather than chaotic, that is different. If something in you feels recognized, not flattered but understood, that is different. If this message does not inflate your ego but steadies your spirit, that is different. Discernment matters. Do not adopt an identity because it sounds empowering. Accept it because it resonates deeply and consistently. A divine calling is not about superiority, it is about responsibility. It is about carrying light consciously in a world that often resists it. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God delivered in divine timing. You are not imagining the shifts in your life. You are not manufacturing meaning where there is none. You were called, and calling leaves evidence. The war is real. It is subtle. It pressures you to shrink, to conform, to question your intuition, to doubt your depth. But the fact that you have felt tension is proof that you are not asleep. Your light is necessary. Not because you are flawless, not because you are louder, but because you are conscious. A conscious person changes environments simply by refusing to participate in dysfunction. Identity consolidation is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is accepting that the habits you once tried to suppress are actually signs of preparation. It is realizing that your strangeness was never random, it was refinement. Stand in that truth. And if this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it. You were called. Prophetic closing. Step into it now. Chosen ones. This is where you decide. You have heard the habits, you have felt the recognition, you have seen the pattern woven through your life. Now you must choose whether you will dismiss it as coincidence or accept it as calling. Let me declare this clearly one more time. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the pull. You are not fabricating meaning. You are not creating depth where there is none. You were called, and calling always leaves evidence. The evidence is in your solitude, in your discernment, in your detachment, in your self-examination, in your lifelong sense of being set apart. The war is real. It fights your focus. It fights your clarity. It fights your identity. It whispers that you are too different, too intense, too much. It pressures you to conform, to quiet your depth, to dilute your light. But your light is necessary. You are not strange. You are being prepared. You are under divine alignment, even when you cannot see the full picture. You are experiencing chosen one signs, not for ego, but for responsibility. You are embodying spiritual awakening traits that are restructuring your character. You are living divine calling indicators that separate you before they elevate you. Do not reject your awakening because it feels uncomfortable. Accept it consciously. Step into it with intention. Stop apologizing for your depth. Stop shrinking your discernment. Stop chasing what no longer aligns. Stand still long enough to recognize what is forming inside you. If this message resonates deeply, not emotionally for a moment, but spiritually with weight, comment 777. Let it be your declaration of alignment. Let it represent your acceptance of divine timing. Let it symbolize that you recognize the activation happening within you. Because awareness without acceptance keeps you stagnant. Circle back to the beginning once more. You did not find this by accident. You were drawn here. That pull was intentional. That stirring was purposeful. That recognition was confirmation. The war is real, but so is your authority. The resistance is real, but so is your resilience. The isolation was real, but so is your preparation. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not misaligned. You are awakening. And when a chosen one remembers who they are, environments shift, conversations shift, decisions shift, energy shifts. So step into it now. Walk carefully, walk boldly. The world shifts when a chosen one remembers who they are. And if this touched your soul, comment 1111111 because you know it. You were called.